nature of that one cannot remember. So I'm just going to invite you into you see what I want to invite you into. I can't even speak up, so I best just speak about it. I've endeavored most of my life to help people point to an indescribable source, and even word source is just doesn't touch it, doesn't cut it, but that's just pointing. And along with that, I've kind of moved, as it were, between that pointing and, as it were, dealing with what comes out of that pointing when that pointing touches someone and that being has a little dive for a moment and then comes up, as it were, like a fish endeavoring to breathe air because it can't, and then dives back into something familiar. So all of my life I've been kind of encouraging. This sounds ridiculous when I say this. Encouraging transformation, but so much more than that. Encouraging the question to question what one is, and what this moment, what is the container of this moment, not what this moment contains. So I'm just going to keep bringing this out because it's quite unusual and difficult for me to even to kind of bring this out. How can one describe? I can describe a container. You can describe a container. You can describe one. You can call the container of awareness or consciousness, you could call that God. But what can you call that is unmeasurable, unnameable? And can I ever point you towards having that in your life? Because you can't have it in your life. It's rather like if you went out into a jungle full of tigers. That tiger's going to have you. And there'll be nothing left of you as you have known yourself. Now, from that point or perspective, and even that doesn't cut it, everything I say is not going to cut it. I'll do my best to keep on moving. Simply because what I'm speaking of, it doesn't really need humans to exist. You want to stay on the line? But if we just turn that a little bit, but then move on, what if that doesn't even need humans to exist, or anything in particular to exist, is what you are? What if you are that tiger? What if you're the very mouth of that tiger? So I've seen in everything that I'm saying, please, is ridiculous, okay? I hope you can hear that. I've seen in my work, that's a ridiculous statement. I've seen in my work how there's nobody here that can teach a human to integrate, that there's no need for any of this whatsoever. Hello, can you hear that at all? Yes, just a teeny weeny little bit. And surprise, even Celia is smiling about it. So I've got a pussycat. I've got a pussycat. Come and say hello. Come on. Hey, look. Look. This is the second pussy cat that's come to me whilst we were speaking today. There you are, sweetie. Well, you want to listen? Black as the ace of spades. Just what I'm talking about. Now, is there anyone here that loves deep, dreamless sleep? The complete dropping into absolutely nothing. Now I ask you, how can you integrate absolutely nothing? And yet, as we even share, as it were, the possibility of moving into absolutely nothing. Isn't there within that is absolutely real? Now, I could make this this sharing with you super easy by simply saying, out of absolutely nothing, out of the black, quite naturally emerges light. And I'm asking this question to all of us. Question is, can I even let go of needing light? The truth is, we pretty well much do that when we apparently drop into sleep. But what if the prior to light is the one and only, and even one doesn't do it, it's nothing, how can there be one? It's the great black or the great depths that are all true beings that are called, yearn for, not light, to fall into the black. And I'm also saying that the black or the dark is the most indescribable power. To have a touch of light can actually be kind of soothing one who is returning to the black, or to, rather than enlightenment, but to endarkenment. You know, I've read and I've seen accounts of people that have, as it were, death experiences. And they experience this blackness coming upon them. So they pray for God, they pray for light. But what is that black or that dark? Is the very source from which light comes from. This, what I'm endeavoring to speak of, it comes about from a conversation that I had with another teacher. Occasionally we share what's taking place within ourselves and within the apparent people that come along. And occasionally we reflect, and often we experience much the same, although we might verbalize it differently. And we're both today in agreement that enlightenment is just a precursor to endarkenment or the deep. It is a power beyond words. And it does not identify in the least with the human. In fact, one who is realizing endarkenment, all their human habits and traits are falling away pretty fast. And with that, this is what we basically shared. If we still were thinking beings, I'm going to put this very basically. You're okay for basic? No, I won't use it that basic. We would be terrified. Absolutely terrified of how the dark is claiming everything and actually is not bothered in what it claims. It's the sheer depths. The power in it has nothing to do with anybody. It's just be interested in power. This just doesn't capture you. But certainly in what I teach or I endeavor to speak of, which is so much more real than what I teach, because I don't teach, I just point. I've discovered you cannot live as a human and realize endarkenment. You cannot live the habitual life at all. The vibration of that's moving through can be quite dramatic and scary for one who encounters it coming through such a being. And so most humans endeavor to turn that human into something more humane. In other words, begin to be familiar with such an energy that transmits, where light actually comes from, And just before I came in, whilst I was just jotting something on the phone, up came this guy you'll probably be familiar with. What the hell is his name? Is he South American, Argentinian, or what is his name? He says he knows all his past lives. Anybody recognize his name?
Yeah. Stephano.
Stephano, yeah? Nice guy. I have nothing to say about him, but he's a nice guy. Traveling space-time, which one would have to believe in if one believes in past lives. And Darkman would just devour that altogether. Trust you hear that I'm not making negative of this, I'm just saying it as it is. There's more than traveling the universe. Which light, known as beingness, may awaken on other levels of the universe. But one who is undarkening has realized the universe, realized the cosmos, realized light, realized the activity of energy and light and manifestation. But now that's all going in to the black. If you're at all familiar with black holes in the cosmos, the black hole spun out the cosmos and the black hole reels it back in. Everything I'm saying or speaking about, what it points to is absolute surrender of any ideas that you exist as a human. And the bizarre thing about this is the human level thrives from the beingness and the non-being that moves that human back into light and back into the deep. Such a human being is distinctly, wholly different than space or time or history. Such a human being is the black hole, moved and spinning as light and energy, appearing to exist as a separate entity now. And I guarantee when one ceases to use thought and one drops thought, not only will one experience the light of knowing, but also come into endarkenment. The great tiger that devours it all, and yet is ultimately real. To me, this is the goalless goal. There's no one here that can stop this return. There's no one here that's not tasting that the moment they close their eyes, not tasting that in deep dreamless sleep, not tasting what one is beyond any description. The closest maybe, and I'm sure there are other books one can read, but even to read in a book that used to be popular, it's called the Holy Bible. And the deep spoke, "Let there be light." It's the closest and yet still far away. So it's a strange thing I'm endeavoring to point towards. To identify at all with the body mind is the basic suffering. To release that identification, if you look with deepening intelligence, as it were, heals or realigns the human with the truth that not only is it moved by energy that's transparently transcendental, but light that transcends energy, and darkness that is beyond it all. And this is where it gets a little crazy. What I'm going to endeavor to put across. I won't reach the mark. It's far too much. Can't make a mark on what I'm endeavoring to point to. absolute emptiness, moves absolutely in its absolute fullness of the light that comes naturally out of that emptiness. And absolute light moves in its entirety, in all transparency, through the light of the self as creation, and returns in the same timeless moment. That means that anyone who can hear what's being transmitted here, in stillness, returns to the deep, begins to experience the depth, and the depths shakes off the light, and the light shakes off the form. And in the same moment, everything is renewed instantly. Then, as it were, it is possible through self-inquiry and through true, passionate and compassionate, it takes compassion too for yourself to be able to live this. To be so clear what this moment for you is about. So clear. Because that tiger will open its jaws. For you to enjoy your return into the deep as the deep. And light may not move. But then you'll be knowing the depths of what you are, from even which light came from. Now this brings about, whilst awareness has a form, the possibility to be so surrendered, light changes everything on every sphere of life, including what we call human. You'll be accused of being inhumane. You'll be accused of being against it all. You'll be accused of being a maniac. You'll be accused of so many things. But even the accuser and the accused is the mouth of the tiger. Just going to have a look at something that I wrote here. Okay. If you've ever had the feeling that your quest for the ultimate, if you have one, is overriding everything you considered to be you, everything you considered to be human. That's what happens. It's also why one man said, take no thought. Because anybody that's wise, that's falling into the deep, open and surrendered, not only are they turning into light, but they're turning into nothing. That taking a thought is like waking up in that process of the caterpillar and the butterfly. You have to completely be immersed in the surrender to the unnameable. Now, to be honest with you, I don't know many at all that are prepared to completely surrender to the unnameable. But those that are willing to take this journeyless journey may discover the wonder of the indescribable. See, there's nothing we can describe that has wonder. What is wonder is the truth that everything we believe to be wonderful is coming out of that wonder. To be very clear and one-pointed about this, one then must cease interacting with the idea that time and space has any truth in it whatsoever. Now, as I speak like this is what I also have known, and this other being I've spoken to, I speak to. Everything I speak of is very hard on the body, as my body will testify. Because like the salmon returning to where it was spawned, you're going against the current of the downstream coming out. You're going back up to where all this comes from. And we can all have fanciful moments in energy and in light, but it's just not it. There is so much more. Because there's nothing in this room. And there's nothing in this life. If I speak from here, I mean more than a person. I'm speaking from here. There's no object. It's all energy, light, pouring from the surrender of realizable return through light into nothing, where light begins to be the vehicle for the unnameable. That's why if we looked at this in terms of the dance of the form, the first of the dance of the form, you might just feel sensation. Mind knows sensation. Then you might get deep enough to experience sensation comes from light or consciousness. So then there are no edges, no borders, no limits. But if you keep going deeper, light will not be your guide. Only surrender is your guide. Openness. To the immensity of what this is. So on the human level, it's making everything seem to be in space, in time, objects, subjects, and none of that is real. It is a wonderful illusion. But whatever I am is destined to realize existence as energy, as life, as light, as meaning, as power to realize light, and then for light to realize endarkenment. And any more than that, we can't really speak of. And when we taste it, we're not someone. And if whatever that is arrives, as it were, having the ability to express, well, that's more than a blessing. That's profound grace. Such a one has become very much like the stars, an instrument to shine the deep. In very simple ways. Everyday life for most people is a do this, do that thing. A don't do this, don't do that thing. A thing around habits. Most people won't look to see they're just a movement of habit. And they will be very surprised to see that that habit isn't theirs, but the species we call human. So much of what we believe in makes us us is an illusion. Anything that passes away is an illusion. But that remains, no matter how much change, including light, is the real. I'm sure if I wanted to, I could dig up many lives throughout the galaxy. with all that information is already in this vibratory field called I. And like me, which is a contradiction because you are me and I am you, like me, you vibrate only in accordance with what you belong to. And the deeper transcendental information of your journeyless journey still awaits you to put the right code into your breath, into your heart, into this moment without any familiarity. So just like maybe a Buddhist monk would have a Buddha to sit and reflect or dissolve into, to give attention to sit at the feet of opened surrender, not Buddha, the person, but Buddha, the absolute truth of here and now. The Buddha of habits is not what your life is about. Buddha of intimate discovery and deepening and opening. And the wonder of that is what your life is about. That everyone that you meet becomes the Buddha, where you cease making this moment familiar. This is a bowing down, bowing open moment, regardless of the information of the frontal mind. The frontal mind at some point will just completely surrender, and the depths of your inner work will pour and make a new human. There's nothing on the surface of our sensory perception that has anything to do with what our real life is for or about. It's the deeper, even the just beyond sense perception that you and I are coming from now. This is where the work is. This is the true meeting place. This is the deeper heart place. This is where we discover more than our habits. This is where we bless the human, but transcend it, but include it. And this is where we realize light. And this is where light realizes the deep. And it's in that you and I will glow deeply, the black true brilliance of a radiant light that comes from nowhere and returns to nowhere in this moment. Now, I don't offer you anything. Really, I only offer you me. That's all I can offer you. Me, right now, is all I can offer you. I can't offer you anything else. Now, the question is, can you offer you and nothing else? Then if that is possible, . You're on the way of a profound path that will lead you nowhere whatsoever, just into the great nowhere you are, which is expressed in every way possible throughout the cosmos. It's quite something to give up those precious little habits that sustain the illusion of separation, that I need to do something other than serve and live this moment fully. Still quite ingrained into the human. Maybe Black Death may have to come upon most of the world's population before a greater awakening. We have this idea that manifestation is about human. Manifestation is only about manifestation, the whole. It's quite something to realize. So we might have got to a stage where we believe we need more light to manifest. In this idea that light will manifest this separate sense of self and give it what it needs. But when you're more deeply attuned, light will turn back into the darkness and bring the deep through the light and disengage everything you ever held you need. And say, all that you need is this. When you really get this, this is all this moment is filled with. No matter where you turn, where you go, this moment is filled with this indescribable depth. Don't worry about joy. Joy is dancing with no beginning and end. So if you can see this, I want to put to you. Let's see if we can hear this. Does the deep, the black, have more power than the light? And in truth, the power of the light is of the deep. So one can experience radiance but you'll have wonderful openings to the deep from which the light emerges. Then you'll realize that when one is completely open and empty, light happens at the tip of your fingers, light happens on the end of your ears, light happens and moves the next level of creating from the deep. You are never not entering your own creation, whether it be limited of time and space, or the unlimited depths of your yearning to realize what you are, which this moment of life gives you the potential to. And all other kind of creating will simply dissolve. And a new depths will be living. Now, I have no idea what you've heard. I do know one thing, that if one is not really interested in the deep, or not practice capturing the mind as it runs off on tangents of this, that, and the other, or simply leaving it alone, we call that distraction. Then you would have been distracted amongst this. I've simply put out the line of calling to really realize what's transmitted here. Don't forget it's here, which isn't there or there or there. It's here. Where is here, please? Then you know where here is. So we have these little voltage buttons here. So actually a V, I'm going to press the V here. And we're going to surge the voltage of you guys meeting and sharing what you deeply heard, or what you deeply didn't. See you all in about 10 minutes.